In this lesson, we are going to solve and graph inequalities. And it's not as hard as it sounds. And it's a lot like solving equations. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how it's done. We are still going to graph inequalities on a number line though, so make sure that you review that if you don't remember that. So your goal is I can solve inequalities and graph the solutions on a number line. So let's go ahead and get started. So before we get started though, I do want to review some practice questions with word form and with graphing. So the temperature today will be at most 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So our key word here is going to be at most. I'm going to go ahead and use T as my variable, but you can use anything that you'd like. And 50 is the number from my problem. Now at most is my number, so is my keyword. I'm going to go ahead and just choose a number to plug in here that I think will make sense, and then that'll help me choose my sign from there. So the temperature today will be at most 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, that means it's not going to get above 50 degrees. So I'm going to do 40 degrees, and so the sign there would be less than. But my question that I need to ask myself will be, can it be exactly 50 degrees? Well, if it's at most 50 degrees, then yes, it could be exactly 50 degrees. So my final answer here is T is less than or equal to 50 degrees. All right, the next question. The temperature tomorrow will be above 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So above is my key word. So again, I think I'm going to use T. 70 is my number, and so above 70, so that's going to mean it needs to go higher than 70. So again, I'm going to pick a number to plug in, so I'm going to say like 72. So that's going to mean it needs to be greater than, but can it be equal to 70? So if it needs to be above 70, then it cannot be equal to 70, so it just has to be greater than. So my final answer is T is greater than 70. Okay, yesterday there was less than 2 inches of rain. Less than is my key word, so I'm going to use R for rain, but again, you can use whichever variable you'd like. I'm going to use 2, and then less than, that's pretty straightforward. That just tells me exactly what my sign is. It's going to be less than. Okay, and that's my final answer. But again, you can use this method right here and plug in some numbers. Last Monday, there were at least 3 inches of rain, so we have at least here. I'm going to use R for rain. My number is 3. So this time I am going to go ahead and plug in some numbers. So at least 3 inches of rain. That's going to mean that there's more than 3 inches of rain. So I'm going to do 5. That means that my symbol is greater than. But could it have been exactly 3 inches of rain? Yes, because if there was at least 3 inches, that means there was 3 or more. Okay, so my symbol is going to be greater than or equal to. All right, let's go ahead and graph these down here. So T is less than or equal to -2, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 0 in the middle, and I'm going to put a -2 on this side, a +2 on this side. And it's a less than or equal to over the -2, so I need to have a closed circle, and my arrow is going to the left. Okay? Next one, J is greater than -5. I'm going to put a 0 here, and I'm just going to go ahead and put a -5 on one side and a +5 on the other side. I'm not going to worry too much about counting tick marks here, as long as I have a negative on one side and a positive on the other side in the proper direction. So this is going to tell me that it's going to be an open circle over the -5, and my arrow is going to the right. And remember, it does not matter how long your arrow is, as long as it's long enough for me to see what direction it's going in. Alright, so it looks like for this one, all I need is a 0. My sign is greater than or equal to, which means it needs to be a closed circle, and it is going to the right. Alright, and then my last one, B is less than 3. So I have -3 on one side, +3 on the other. So it's going to be, this tells me here, an open circle, and it is going to the left. All right, that was a quick review. So now let's talk about solving inequalities. So here's my question to you. Do you remember how to solve a one-step equation? So remember, I'm talking equation. Look at the equal sign here. Do you remember how we were to box the variable? Okay, and then we would use inverse equations. So here was multiplication. The opposite of multiplication was division. And so we moved that 3 away from the x. Okay, and then we got x equals 6. Do you remember that? Hopefully the answer is yes, because that was only about a week and a half ago or so. Well, here's the thing. That is the exact same way that you are going to solve inequalities. You are literally going to solve it the exact same way. The only difference is that instead of an equal sign, you have an inequality sign. So at the very end of the problem, all you do is graph it. Okay? So, step 1, you're going to box the variable. Step 2, do you see how that 3 is attached to the x? So you have to use the inverse operations. Well, that's multiplication, so we need to do division. So we're going to divide by 3 and divide by 3. Our 3's cancel. We're left with x, bring down our sign, is greater than, and 18 divided by 3 is 6. Now, at this point, you need to graph. And so I have 0, -6, +6. This is going to tell me open circle, and my arrow is going that way. And that is your final answer. This is your final answer, and the graph is your final answer. So let's go ahead and practice. Okay, n plus 8 is greater than 19. So, box the variable. Now, what's happening here? We have a plus 8. So, we're going to do -8. But whatever we do to one side of the sign, we have to do it to the other side. -8. So, n, these guys cancel, is greater than, and then 19 minus 8 is 11. We're going to box off the answer, and now we need to go ahead and graph. So we have 0 in the middle, -11 here, +11 here. This right here is going to tell me that it's going to be an open circle over the 11, and it's going to be going to the right. And that's it. All right, next one. 8 is greater than or equal to k minus 3. Step 1, box the variable. Step 2, what's attached to the variable? A -3. What's the inverse, the opposite? +3. So whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. +3. Okay, these guys cancel. I bring down my k. I bring down my sign. 8 plus 3 is 11. Now, I hope your red flags are going off right here, and you should be thinking, well, I need to flip that around because the variable always needs to be on the left-hand side, and you're right. So I need to bring the k on this side, the 11 on this side, and I also need to flip the sign. And so this right here is going to be your final answer, and all we need to do now is graph it. So we have 0 in the middle, -11 on one side, +11 on one side. This right here is going to tell me a closed circle, and it's going all the way to the right. All right, next one. 8x is greater than 40. Step 1, box the variable. Step 2, what's attached to it? Okay, the 8, it's next door to each other, which tells us multiplication. What's the inverse of multiplication? Division. So I need to divide by 8. But whatever I do to one side, I have to do it to the other. Divide by 8. These 8's are going to cancel. I bring down my x. I bring down my sign. 40 divided by 8 is 5. That's it. Now I need to graph. So I have 0 in the middle, -5 on one side, +5 on the other side. This right here tells me open circle over the 5, and I'm going to go to the right. All right, next one. 3 is greater than or equal to k over 3. Step 1, box the variable. Step 2, what's happening here? Well, the k is being divided by the 3. Well, what's the inverse of division? Multiplication. So I'm going to multiply by 3. But whatever I do to one side, I have to do it to the other. So these 3's are going to cancel because the inverse operations always cancel. Bring down my k. Bring down my sign. 3 times 3 is 9. But again, what's happening here? Our variable always has to be on the left. So I'm going to flip it around. I flip the k into 9, but I also need to flip my sign. And that's my final answer. And then all I need to do now is graph. 0 in the middle, -9, +9. This sign right here is going to tell me closed circle on top of the 9. And then the arrow is going all the way to the left. Alright, you go ahead and try these 4 on your own and make sure that you graph. Alright, go ahead and pause the video if you're not done. If you are done, let's go ahead and check answers. So for the first one, you should have gotten x is less than or equal to 16. Closed circle on top of the 16 with the arrow pointing to the left. For the second one, over to the right, top right, you should have gotten y is less than or equal to, y is less than 18. Open circle over the 18, arrow pointing to the left. For the third one, bottom left, the blue one here, y is less than 12, which is going to be an open circle over the 12, arrow pointing to the left. And then for the last one on the bottom right, you should have gotten m is less than or equal to 21, closed circle over the 21, arrow pointing to the left. So all of these actually ended up with the arrow pointing to the left. All right. I have pulled some multiple choice EOG type questions for us to look at that have to deal with inequalities so that you can see what they would look like on a standardized test. So I want to go through a couple of those with you right now. Which inequality best represents this phrase? A number greater than 1. What I want you to do is annotate this just like we would annotate word form. So a number, x, greater than, there's our symbol, -1. So which one of these choices, A, B, C, or D, matches what we just wrote? And if you annotated it properly, it should match exactly what A says. Okay? Next one, which inequality best represents this phrase? A number less than or equal to 0. So a number, and I'm going to use n because I can see that they used n, less than or equal to, so that's less than or equal to 0. Okay, so which one exactly matches? And it should be C. So the annotating really helps. Okay, next one. This one's a little trickier. 5 friends had lunch together. Okay, their total bill was X dollars, including tax and tip. They shared the cost equally, and each friend paid less than $10. Which inequality shows the possible solutions for X, the total amount of the bill? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, first of all, the way that this is supposed to be solved, and then I'm going to show you a trick to solve this problem if you could not figure out the way to actually properly solve it, okay? So the way that you're supposed to solve this is to come up with a one-step inequality. Okay, so first of all, it says that they each paid less than $10, okay? And when friends go out to lunch and they share the cost equally, that means that we are dividing the bill, okay? And so it's X divided by 5 because the bill is X and they divided it by 5 people, okay? Now, once you come up with that, you know how to solve that. Box the variable, multiply both sides by 5, these cancel, and then it's X is less than, and 10 times 5 is 50. And then you'll get that the answer is B. Okay? Now that is how you solve it properly. But let's say that you could not come up with that equation. Well, let me show you a trick here. So, if you're looking at the problem and you have no earthly idea, well, look at the answer choices. X, 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 50, 50, 50, 50. The only thing that's different here in the answer choices are the actual signs, okay? So, you just have to figure out what the sign is supposed to be. Well, look right here. Less than. It tells you what the sign is. And so then you know that B is the answer in this case because the sign should be less than. Okay? All right, next question. A red block and a blue block are on a scale. The red block weighs 9 ounces. The total weight of both blocks is at most 16 ounces. Which inequality best represents B, the possible weight of the blue block in ounces? So this is another type of question where we have to come up with an equation. So the red block and the blue block, okay, added together are at most 16 ounces. So red plus blue is at most 16 ounces, okay? But what's the sign for at most? And that's something that you do need to know, and we've been working on that through writing things in word form. So at most, okay, means that it could be equal to, but it's going to be less than or equal to. Now, it does tell us that the red block weighs 9 ounces. So this R here, we can rewrite as 9 plus B is less than or equal to 16. Now we can go ahead and solve, okay? Box our variable, minus 9, minus 9. These cancel. B is less than or equal to, and then 16 minus 9 is 7. So this here is our final answer, okay? Which is going to match B. Now again, I'll show you a trick, okay? So if you know that at most both of the blocks weigh 16 ounces, it's not going to direct you to one specific answer, but you should be able to definitely get rid of answer choice C and answer choice B, because those are more than 16 ounces, and so they should not be 25 ounces together, because at most they weigh 16 ounces together, okay? So it should be A or B, and you'll have to determine the sign from there. All right, here we go. Which number is not a solution for the inequality below? So what we need to do is we need to take each one of these numbers and plug them in for x and see which one makes the statement false, because we're trying to figure out which one is not a solution. So 6 divided by 2, all I did is I plugged the 6 in right here, okay, equals 3. Is it true that 3 is greater than or equal to 12? No, not true. But let's check the other ones, okay? Let's do 24. 24 divided by 2 equals 12. Is it true that 12 is greater than or equal to 12? That is true, okay? Let's try 25. 25 divided by 2 equals 12.5. Is it true that 12.5 is greater than or equal to 12? That is true. So which one is false? A is false. Alrighty, so I believe this is the last one. Which graph shows the solution set for this inequality? So we need to solve this inequality and determine which one of these is the graph. R plus 9 is less than 12. So we're going to box our variable, minus 9, minus 9. These 9's cancel. Bring down the R, bring down our sign. 12 minus 9 is 3. So this sign right here is going to tell us that we're going to have an open circle. So we can get rid of A and we can get rid of C. B and D have open circles. So we just need to figure out which way the arrow is going to go. And we know that that arrow, if we just draw a little tail on it, is pointing to the left. So the answer is D. Alright, I know that that was a very long lesson, but that is the end of this lesson, and we will work on some more practice problems in class.